and welcome back to the Diablo podcast. Brief interruption of the normal podcasting that you are expecting at this point, once every 2 weeks, years, maybe. But at this point, maybe back to 2 weeks. I am your host, Anthony. I am joined today by two people. First, we have Rush, here all the way from the UK.
Good evening, or good morning, or whatever it is.
Well, it can be both. It all depends on when they're listening. And last guest on the pod, and hopefully, that isn't a widow-making kind of role that he has taken on. Nineball.
Oh, no pressure there, right? Oh, hi.
That would be quite the title. Feel free to update your Twitter bio. So it has been about 3 years since we hosted a podcast that involves a whole pandemic and about now 4 Diablo games. Last time that we were talking, we found ourselves just focusing on that beautiful slice of life that is dreaming about Diablo 4. And in the meantime, we have found ourselves with a glut of Diablo options right now. We have ourselves Diablo 2 Resurrected, we have Diablo Immortal, we have Diablo 3, and of course, still right on the horizon now, next year, Diablo 4. So it's been a while. Up first, Nineball, what have you been doing?
Well, I continue to talk about Diablo on a regular basis to anybody that will listen. But my life has changed quite a bit, in these last couple of months. Since the last time that we recorded on the show, I am now engaged, and I'm getting married in October. Thank you. So this year, I still have my own little podcast that I run, but it's been very, unfortunately, been pushed off to the side for the majority of this year as we've been planning things and work and all this other types of stuff that's been going on. But I still love to chat about Diablo at any given chance that I get. So,
and I feel the need to give a brief introduction when it comes to Rush, because anybody who's listened to this podcast and has obviously picked it up after 3 years knows Nineball, but you probably haven't heard that beautiful accent of Rush. But Rush has quite the history. In fact, I wouldn't be in any way involved with Diablo without him, because the original site was...
Let's be honest. I might not be involved with anything Diablo either.
I had one bookmark in high school, and it was DII.net. And the man responsible for that is Rush. So Rush, 25 years involved with Diablo. Why?
I'm not going to take credit for this. I'm going to give Ellie all the credit, actually, because it was really her that started all this 25 years ago. And I remember, because we were running it was actually the world's first gaming cafe at the time. And we were running that together, and she said, "Oh, look, this Diablo game is really cool. I really like it." And we had a 64K leased line or something into it, which is nothing. You can imagine, 64K. So she said, "Look, I'd like to put a website together for this. Do you think you can do it? Technically, could we do it on the 64K line?" I'm just going, "Well, yeah, hell, let's just do it, or whatever. We'll just go for it." So I taught myself how to set up a web server and all that stuff onto this lease line, and I just let her run with it, and then it all just kind of took off from there. She really drove it to, getting... we didn't have, we didn't even have forums back then. She literally got people to email in, their questions, and she'd hand paste them in, it was just crazy. We didn't have the technology. It didn't exist back then, there was no Reddit, there was no Twitter, there was nothing like that. So that's kind of how I got involved, really, with that. And then when we decided to close that business down, we kind of thought, right, let's just go for it, and that's when the site really took off. And then, Flux, obviously, a lot of people will remember Flux from the old days, and like he really, stepped up and really helped Ellie, and that kind of, they worked together like so well. And so I was kind of like mainly doing the technical stuff, and I still do all the technical stuff, but they were really like sort of the forefront of it. And like while we were all playing it and stuff, they were really the voices of, and probably why you guys ended up on the site at some point. But
honestly, I don't know why you weren't part of the voice. You do. Anybody with an accent is going to sound much better.
At least Blizzard could hire me to do some Scottish accents for their dwarves, because they're terrible generally. But I'm not very broad. My accent's not very broad Scottish, thankfully, because you probably wouldn't understand me otherwise. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of how like I got involved in it, and then we kind of just ran it for years, and then there was like that big hiatus, between like D2 and D3. It was like 10 years, and we'd sit there going, what can we write about this week? Because like Blizzard's doing nothing. There's like no information. There's literally nothing. So in those sort of 10 years, we'd have to come up with stuff and try and keep the site fresh like all the time, and try and keep the community engaged, because Blizzard at that point had just like given up on the Diablo community. There was just like nothing going on. So we kind of tried to keep that going, as long as we could. Then D3 in 2008, obviously that got announced at the WWI, which we were at, and we got in a lot of trouble because like we supposedly leaked it, that it was going to get announced. We didn't actually. It was actually appeared somewhere else first. But I remember the Blizzard PR lady. I walked into the press room. She comes running up to me, going, "What have you done? What have you done?" And I haven't done anything. Just put news on the site. She's going, "Yeah, but you shouldn't put that up. You shouldn't put that up." I said, "Well, we're just reporting, what someone else has reported already." And it was so obvious anyway, because like outside of WWI, this big banner and like Diablo was center stage. So it was kind of like, okay, well, they haven't put WoW on it, or they haven't put, StarCraft on it. So it's obviously going to be Diablo. And then obviously then we moved into the D3 stuff. And then I think a bit later on down the line, Flux decided that he wanted to make wine. And become a sommelier or whatever it was. He went off to do, and that was it. And so Ellie and I, we carried on. And I think about 2017, we just I kind of like burned out. Like we were working so hard on it. We were trying to follow, keep community going and like following it as best we could. Ellie really needed a break as well, so we kind of thought, that's it. We just got to let the site go. And just step back from it. And then so I kind of went off and worked for the company that took it over for a couple of years. So I was doing like marketing in the video game sector and stuff like that, and working on their ad sales team. I was like European sales director at the time. And then that they kind of another company took them over. They kind of, new management was bought in, so that was a big clear out. So I thought, well, this is a good time to go. So I went. That was right at the end of 2019, before the pandemic hit. And then when the pandemic hit, we were kind of thinking, well, like there's no work, like everything's getting locked down. And by that point, like Ellie and I were like both getting itchy feet, going, you're kind of missing it. We're missing the community, because the community's been such a big part of our lives. All the people, like guys in the forums that are there now, they've been there. A lot of them have been there like for those 25 years, and they're kind of, it's almost like family. I mean, you kind of step back from it, you kind of go, oh, kind of miss that. I miss the excitement. I miss the community. I miss, being part of this, great group of people that are, that love this game or love this franchise. So that's where Pure Diablo, that's when that was born, at the beginning of 2020. And we just thought, yeah, this is good. This feels right. And a lot of the old guys found the site, and guys in the single player forum and stuff that like been there forever. They all turned up. Mm-hmm. And what was great was the moderators from the old site. They all came over and said, "Yeah, we'll start moderating again. We want to be part of this." So, like for us, that was really nice to know that people wanted to still do that and be part of the same community again. And that's where we're at now. So like for the last sort of year and a half, we've just been experimenting with stuff, like building new systems on the site. Like I don't know, some of you may have seen like the Overwolf D2 R app, which we put together, which is something completely different for us. It's like in-game overlay, which is going to get an update really soon. Some really cool features, new features on it. And then we moved into like a couple of other games that I was playing, because like D2R hadn't been announced, right? So we were playing other things. Like we knew D4 was coming, but when? 10 years, 8 years, 4 years? We just didn't know. So I started playing other stuff. So I played Cyberpunk, which bombed. I mean, I really enjoyed it, but the game bombed. So I created a site for that. It wasn't too much work to do, but I just thought it'd be good fun to do for my own reference, which is like why we always did sites. We always did sites for stuff that we were playing and stuff that we really enjoyed. Like it'd be really easy just to go and pick a game like Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto or something, but that's not like games that we play, so we can't get excited about writing about it or getting too enthusiastic about it. And then beginning of this year, we did an Elden Ring site because obviously we just thought it'd be fun to do, and we'd launched that really quickly. A lot of that was like with data mining info and stuff from the game, so that was quite exciting to do that and get into someone else's game systems and not just like Blizzard stuff. So we did that, and then like the focus right now has been rejigging the way that everything works now on all the sites. So like there's a universal login system, so like your forum account lets you log in everywhere else and all this kind of stuff. And there's a new D4 wiki which has just gone up. So we moved all the like Diablo 4 content that we had into wiki because we realized like there's like 2 of us, and this is going to like be so huge that we want the community to be part of what we're trying to do. So that's now just be finished off work on that today. That's up and running. All the content's in there, and we're still building that out. But there's a lot of stuff in there already, and that's kind of where we are. So like our focus right now isn't on anything else other than like D4. So we're kind of like, right, it's D4. D4 is going to be out like sort of either June next year or maybe October, around that period. Maybe it might come out, on the anniversary of D2R. We just don't know, but that's what we're focused on.
Yeah, that Microsoft announcement kind of put a hard date of at least June of next year.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's what I mean, they'll probably put it out. I think it was D2. Was that released in June?
Yeah, that was like June 23rd. Was it?
Yeah, something 21st? Like that. Yeah, so like I bet you they pick some date like that where it's on, around the sort of anniversary or something.
As a teacher with summers off, I will take that. I will take that 100%, because then I just got nothing but time. I'm going to make the time regardless. Like Blizzard, whenever you need it, when it's ready. But if it comes out in June, oh man, it's going to be awful. So Raj, I want to bring up one thing because it's going to get asked. It gets asked all the time. You can confirm you haven't heard from Flux in years. Nobody knows what this guy is.
No,
I love him too, but unfortunately he's not coming back.
No, he's not. He's not coming back. He's either fallen into a vat of wine somewhere and hasn't managed to get out. No, that was. I think I to be fair to Flux, like he worked really hard on it, and I think like Ellie, because they were doing so much content, they were writing so much. I look back on it now and I'm just like amazed at the amount of stuff that they put together for the community. I honestly don't know how they did it sometimes. I think he just kind of burned out and needed a change. I think when I met him at BlizzCon, not just before he decided to call it a day, and he just kind of looked tired. We're all feeling a little bit tired, so yeah, I think that he's not coming back. As much as we'd love him to, he's moved on.
But Flux, if you do happen to be out there and you're listening, feel free, come on back because you're always welcome. And we miss you. I was on my my BattleNet friends list, and I was looking down the names yesterday, and I did see his, and it's been 6 years since he last logged in. So he might have found happiness outside of video games. I've heard that is a possibility for some. I don't believe it, but it could possibly have happened. So good for him, and for those of you who will more than likely comment about Flux, because I went back. I'm a vain man. I looked at some of the old podcasts. I saw some comments, and I know that's going to be a question. So we've addressed it, and now feel free to just post that question anyway, because you didn't listen. You didn't listen. Now, kind of going back to it, you brought up Pure Diablo. Definitely, go there, check that out. I remember the second that I saw Diablo 3 was announced, the first website I immediately, it just clicked in my brain, was to go to dii.net, and immediately was just drawn back in there. So if you happen to have been drawn in by the Diablo 4 announcement, or you're new to the franchise, then jump in and head to Pure Diablo and start getting your information there, because I think some cool things are in the works. So this has been fun talking about history, but we didn't come to talk about history. Let's revel in the fact that we have 4 Diablo games right now that can draw our attention, which is honestly something I could have never imagined. So I think maybe we should go in order of most contentious and start with Diablo Immortal.
Ooh, brave choice.
I know. I think if they didn't tune out yet, right? I'm just going to talk about Diablo Immortal.
Now we'll get them. We'll stop listening here.
This is where it ends. So I had shared in our little pre-cast combo, my Diablo Immortal experience is pretty limited. I am not a huge phone gamer. Like, I just don't find myself in enough situations to play on my phone. If I'm at home, I've got my console or PC, I'm going to play on those. And then I'm at home a lot, or if I'm outside, I'm too busy. Like, I just don't have the time. And honestly, even when I had the time, I just didn't think to do it. What I've played, I've liked. I haven't had enough experience with monetization to critique it. However, I think somebody might. So, Nimble, what are your thoughts on Diablo Immortal and where it's at right now? Because ultimately, we don't want to necessarily just rehash everything that's been out there. But like, currently, you have it, you play it. What's your experience right now? Are you going to keep this going? Like, Diablo 4 comes out. Like, Diablo 4 comes out in June. Are you still going to find yourself, do you think, going back and playing a little bit of Immortal on the side? Or is this something that it's just going to be like, it's going to kill time until then?
I do want to caveat everything here with saying that, of course, I am an official Diablo partner. So take anything that I say with a grain of salt, because I'm a corporate shill paid actor, whatever that you want to go through and say. But so I am still playing Diablo Immortal, but my experience with it is, of course, a little bit contentious. Do I see myself continuing to play Diablo Immortal once Diablo 4 comes out? Yeah, the majority of my playtime is actually during my commute to and from work on my lunch break and such. And I still have been putting some time into it. But just like anything else, as I mentioned before, like we've got family in town, that can't make the wedding, and so we've been, like, the last couple of weeks, we've been going through and doing stuff with some of Neve, my fiance, with her family and such. And so my playtime has dropped significantly to the point like what you were saying. And so sometimes, it's like I'll log on, I'll do my dailies like on my way to work and then on the way back, and then I get home and I forget to play the game. There'll be like certain like timed events and stuff like that, and I just completely miss them because it's like, oh yeah, that happened, but we're out to dinner with family, or we're out doing this or that. And so it's my playtime has dropped off a little bit. I do still find the game fun and enjoyable, though I'm not pushing for leaderboards, because that's where, of course, all the negative publicity and the issues begin to come in, is the monetization in the game. And it's one of those ones where my feelings are conflicted. I've said since back when the original beta for the game came out, there was another content creator, Greg 2G, that he and I had talked about it's going to be a mobile game. It's going to have some form of monetization. That's just it's a mobile game, but the 5-star gems are like really problematic with how much power you can purchase, and also like the money that you spend has diminishing returns. So like for full clarity, I've put about $315 of my own money into the game. During the beta testing, I wanted to see how it works, what the gem system does, and so I put the $300 in. And then since the game itself has come out, I have put an additional $75 in from my Battle.net balance from selling all of my WoW gold, because I don't play that game anymore, so I might as well get something out of it, right? And so that's like where I'm at. And it's funny because like you would think like, oh, those first couple $100 actually like gets you a lot of the in-game system, the combat rating, resonance and such. I'm sitting around like 1.2k resonance, whereas like a free-to-play player at this point might only be sitting at like 500. So I've got like 10,000 more health. Like they might have like 45,000. I have like 57,000. I've got 1,000 more damage on top of them, like around like 25% more damage than what they would do. So I've got a pretty significant step up. A lot of that is nerfed in PvP to some degrees, but then when you go from like 1,000 to 3,000. Like I'm only a couple $100 in, but to get to that 3,000 resonance mark, like kind of like one of the next big breakpoints, you're now thousands of dollars in. And then to go from 3,000 resonance to 5,000 resonance, you're now being measured in tens of thousands of dollars. And then in order to go through from the 5K resonance to the 7K resonance, which is kind of like the cap of the game, you're hundreds of thousands of dollars. That you're going through in order to spend to hit those particular breakpoints. And so it's a greatly diminishing returns on the amount of money that you put in. Because sure, that first $5 that you spend, a lot of value. You're going to get a lot of power. You're going to get some boost. You'll get the legendary drops and all that stuff going off and have some fun with it. But then it's just kind of like indicative of the entire mobile game market that then the next $5 that you spend isn't as good. And then the next $5 that you spend isn't as good, type one of those kind of like things. And that's where some of the issues, with the game come in that, if you hit certain things that it's like, oh, well, maybe I should buy another like $25 Crest Run or something like that because I'm so close to getting that next like little upgrade because I haven't had a resonance boost in a while and such. And it's like becomes like, but I really don't want to spend any more money. I just want to play. It's like I'm so close to the precipice of hitting that next little bump for the next difficulty or something along those lines. But it's just kind of like going back and like, no, I'll just grind it out. I'll take the extra week of playing and grinding, to hit, whatever marker it is that I'm going through and searching for.
Just a quick question, because I've really played a little bit myself and certainly haven't put any money into it. But do you feel satisfied? You've put a little bit of money in. Do you feel satisfied as you're playing it now, or do you feel frustrated?
It's funny because it kind of comes in waves because the difficulties have like requirements. You have it's not just like strength, or main stat or all attack rating or anything, whatever previous Diablo game that you had. A lot of it comes down to a resource called combat rating. And so in order to do the higher level content, you need combat rating that matches, and it scales. So if you're 100 combat rating under the monster that you're fighting, you're doing greatly reduced damage and they're doing greatly increased damage to you, to the point where you'll somewhere around like 300 CR, it kind of becomes next to impossible. It's not worth your time. And so in order to get the best gear, you have to do the higher difficulties. Because the difficulties drop different level stats, as well as the higher difficulties will drop additional items. Like you can't complete your sets until you're up to Hell 4 difficulty, and it's meeting those breakpoints in order to get into that difficulty, because you don't have to be a certain level or anything like that. You basically have to have a certain combat rating to do it. And so as you get closer and be like, I really should be farming in Hell 4 to complete my sets, or to get this next big boost of gear to do the new content that's coming out. And well, I can't, because I don't have the stats. I don't have I don't have my gems high enough level, or I don't have the good enough gear in order to go through and do it. And that's where it goes through and becomes frustrating as you get closer and closer to that point. But once you get to that level and can get some of that gear, then all of a sudden it just, the gear itself will start dropping like candy. Your stats will raise very, very quickly. And then you'll kind of be good for another couple of weeks until you then until you start getting to Hell 5. And then you have to do it all over again. And so you'll have a couple of weeks of frustration, and then you hit that kind of like that break point, and then you're fine. So it's weird in the fact that it kind of like gives you these little like kind of like points of resistance that makes it kind of wonky.
This reminds me. Have either of you spent any time at a casino or gambling or anything like that?
No.
Not much.
So we have one.
So I spent time at a casino earlier this year. I was playing Warhammer.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've gambled only a handful of times in my life, but in going through this, it reminds me. We went to a casino once, and my wife and I, back when we were just dating, and we started at the like dollar slots, and like I went through like $10. It's like, oof, I don't know about this. We found the quarter slots. I was like, okay, and I went through about $10, and it still didn't feel good. Then we went to the nickel slots, and that was where I felt comfortable, because by the end of the night, like I think I had won maybe $10. I actually technically walked away with -10 from the previous $20 that I had lost there. But like nickel slots is where I felt comfortable. It's where I felt like, okay, I can lose this amount of money and be okay. I think I would have a hard time, like in that description of Immortal, where like I would have a hard time putting money in. Like I'm already, like comfortable at the nickel slots. And I would have to try to grind as much as I could. And I think that's where I would probably hit that wall. But it's an interesting perspective nonetheless. And I do I am super intrigued by the story. I dug out all my storybooks to give to my son, because he's reading them all right now. So knowing that there's a part of the lore that I don't know bothers me. So I do want to put in there.
and I have to say the story in Immortal is actually really good. The one caveat being the cycle of strife. The Immortals and the Shadows retcons a huge amount of pre-existing Diablo canon, which I don't like. But the main storyline and stuff like that is actually really well done. Very respectful of all of the Diablo lore that had come before. Skarn actually was like a really nice villain. It had some pretty decent writing, especially compared to previous Diablo games. And they did a good job also with a lot of like the background characters and the conversations. The little side quests all have like some sort of little Easter egg or something like that. Even going through, I don't know if you care about spoilers, but like in the final zone of the game, there's an enclave of angels that you're going through and helping out, and they call you the child of exiles. And it's like just like little tiny things like that. It's like, yeah, we are, that's actually what to the angels that we are. So that's actually really well done, well researched, on their side and such. It's 100% worth a playthrough of the game just to get the story.
Nice.
So I will say that. And like, it's like for Diablo Immortal, of course, it's always those weird things where you have a lot of people saying, oh, it's one of the worst monetized games that's out there. It's so predatory, blah, blah, blah. Getting ready for Immortal, I played some other mobile games that were out there, and like, it's not worse. It's not better, and so it was just like I expected a paradigm shift, that they're going to go through, bring a AAA game to the mobile market, and they're going to break the mold in the monetization scheme. And it will still have some pay to win elements in it, but it's not going to be as outrageous, as others. It's still not as bad as like Raid Shadow Legends or Raziel or a lot of these other games where you literally do have to pay to play. Like you run out of stamina, or you have to pay for a new zone in order to do it, or you have to pay for certain characters to even attempt like the in-game content. All of that, at least at some point, is available to you. Especially like the story and all of that, you literally have to pay nothing to play through the entire game. Nothing is locked behind paywalls. There's nothing stopping your ability to progress from just playing the game. In that respect. So it is a little bit better, but I don't think that it's better enough to gain praise. You took baby steps forward when we were expecting better from Blizzard.
Right. Well, a good perspective nonetheless, and I definitely would like to do a podcast just on lore, especially as I was saying in our pre-show, that my son has started to get into Diablo, which is possibly the greatest parenting feat that I've managed to accomplish. When you have your son enjoying the things that, well, not just enjoying the things, but reveling in the same type of nerdery, like that feels pretty cool. So like going back and going back through the story and stuff like that has been kind of cool to see him take an interest, because I would distinctly remember going to bed, like and taking like the game manuals from like Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 to just sit there and read at night, because they had those little bits of lore. So when he, took the Book of Cain from me and then like had it in his bed last night and the night before that, it felt pretty sweet. So yeah, we definitely got to get back when it comes to lore. But we're going to end up spending all of our time talking about Diablo Immortal, and well, I think we understand what the audience probably is. So we'll move in. So we have 3 other Diablo games, and I apologize to everybody listening. There's so many things to talk about, and it's been so long. We're trying to get all of it in one fell swoop, so that in the episodes that follow, we can just give that little bit of focus on each thing and allow it to kind of shine. But after 3 years, there is a lot.
It's just a tad.
Just a little bit, but Diablo Immortal deserves its due, because it is kind of this departure. Now let's shift gears then to Diablo 2 Resurrected. Kind of a return, right? I mean, Rush, you're in this game, so that's kind of cool.
Oh, I correct you. I'm not in it. I was the only one that wasn't in it.
What? I thought you were, because I know Ellie's in.
Ellie's in, yeah. And Flux
was in it, and Gale was in it.
So you're telling me that in 25 years you have not been featured in a game?
No.
Now, Nineball, I know you're in, because I killed you the other day.
Yes, yeah. You can kill me in both D3 and in Immortal.
So let's hypothetically say that there are people out there in Blizzard channels that might hear this, and maybe you pass it along. I would say 25 years. Maybe we get Russian. I'm just saying, you could just change one thing. Change a dead zombie's name somewhere out there, and we see it. For somebody that like Ellie was there in D2, right? So
yeah, she's always the rogue that I pick. I horribly.
So I would say, hypothetically, anybody out there, just I don't know what goes into game making. That's why I'm doing a podcast. So maybe some coding, and you push a few buttons, and maybe some stuff happens. But yeah, let's get Russian there. I think that'd be pretty cool. Not to discredit Nineball. Nineball, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, he's in 2 already.
Yeah, but that's true. You do have 2. But no, that's obviously awesome. Just put it out there, and maybe now that they've seen your face, Paul, they might be so inclined. So let's see. But Diablo 2 Resurrected. I'm not gonna lie, I've been having a blast playing.
Oh, that was so much to get the truth out of you.
I know it was hard. I'm in, very cloaked in my emotions around Diablo, especially Diablo 2. But it has been a blast to go back I think the best description I've seen of Diablo 2 Resurrected is it looks like it felt when I first played. Right?
Exactly. This is why it's so clever, because how you see it now is how you imagined it. Because I went back. So before, like when it got announced, Ellie and I went back and played D1 together, and we did a video series. It's on the YouTube channel, and we played like D1 all the way through, and then we were going to play D2 all the way through again, because it's like a few, quite a few years since we'd played it at that point, and obviously we'd not been doing the site, so we thought, okay, well, let's just go back and enjoy ourselves and play it. And we're going, looking at the graphics, going, I don't know, I don't remember it being like this. This is not how I imagine it. But like after you've played it for like 30 minutes, you just zone in, and it's you don't, doesn't matter. It's all pixely or whatever. But when they got announced D2R, it was like, oh man, especially like after Breivik had said, oh no, I don't think it's going to be possible for them to do this.
I did interview. I did a podcast with Dave,
Yeah.
and we talked about that. Because it was still in the rumor mill, and he was pretty adamant that he didn't think it could be done.
Yeah.
So when I that's where it became pleasantly surprised when it was.
Yeah. So you got to look at it now and give them absolute credit. I mean, it looks fantastic. When we got on that first beta test, it was like, oh, it was like being a kid again. It was just like all memories of playing it all come flooding back. Of course, like when that came out, like we had the video game cafe, so we had a LAN. So like all of us were all playing on the LAN, which was just brilliant. So we were playing it all the way through, which was brilliant. And then when that came out, when they announced it, it's just like, oh. But then when you finally got our hands on it, it's like, oh, yeah, this is how I remember it. This is how I thought it was. Even though like 3 weeks earlier I played the original, I still thought this is like how it was back then. Oh, so pleased. They've just done such a good job in it. I mean, I've seen so many remasters over the years that have come out, and they've just like been rubbish, not very good at all. But they just nailed it. They just nailed it.
Nineball?
Yeah, I mean, I went through. I was in the tests, and I played it a ton when the D2R came out. But just I've gotten pulled onto other things. So it still is the game that I remember. But the disadvantage for me, it's still the game that I remember, So it had the new shine and everything like that, and it was really fun seeing the how a lot of the things got interpreted. When you're just going through and you're looking at pixels, and then actually like looking at it, it's like, wait, so you're telling me all those little fetishes actually had like these gnarly skull faces, like and things like that. It's like, that is horrible. I love it. And that there was a lot of fun. And of course, the patch that came out earlier this year with some like the little tiny rune words and stuff like that for some like the leveling improvements and such was fun. But I think the thing that will really draw me back in is if they actually start doing something more akin to Path of Exile and Diablo 3, where you have seasons that have some sort of significant change or some additional content to go through and do. Because otherwise, I mean, the only thing in Diablo 2 that I've yet to do is just get a level 99, and that's pretty much it. I'm not interested in doing a Holy Grail, but I've done all of the Ubers, I've leveled all the classes. I've had a lot of fun going through and doing all those things. And it's just like, I'm waiting for something else, to get me interested to go through, do, and play through the game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it is kind of a tightrope for Blizzard with D2R, just on account of like how much do you stay 100% true to what was working for so long, and then how much do you add in? I mean, even adding in those new rune words was contentious, or adding in different synergies. I for one have loved it. I'm currently playing through kind of a zoo druid, so I just have a bunch of animals, and it is awesome. And that was a character I wanted to kind of be able to do in the initial in Lord of Destruction, but I couldn't because it just didn't work. It wasn't an effective character. And
you get one pet.
Right.
User. Yeah.
Exactly. So this has been fun, and it's been kind of cool to play a different version of a class that I thought I knew really well, and I'm learning things, which is not what I expected. But yeah, you're right. I know the end game will eventually devolve into what I had been doing for many years, and that I think that has always been the detriment of Diablo 2, is the end game does get very stale very quickly. But at the time, it was so revolutionary. It was still like this.
Oh, yeah.
I will be drawn along by nostalgia for a lot longer than what I would expect. But having played Path of Exile, or even greater rifts in Diablo 3, like I think the expectation now is much higher. And I'd be curious if they're willing to touch that. If they'd be willing to change what an end game actually looks like for Diablo 2, or if they're content with what it's kind of always been.
I think probably the latter. I don't think they'll dick with it too much. I think it'll just be like really small changes. I mean, you have to think about all these people that are playing it now. I just have to look at the forums and that, like I was saying about old names and faces that have been there all the time that are still playing it now. They'll come back, and there's a lot of people that don't play D2R that are still playing, D2 mods, or playing the classic. I just don't think they'll mess with it too much. It might be unwise to mess with it too much. I don't mind the room word stuff. I'm cool with that. But I don't know. I'm not convinced that any sort of major changes would be wise. But I could be wrong. Maybe everyone's like hankering for new stuff. I don't know. But that's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are a lot of good mods out there. I don't know necessarily if you want to change it, especially what could that also do? Cannibalize your audience for some of the other games that you want people to go out and buy and play more too. You made that sale. I would imagine, Diablo 4 is going to have some sort of monetization, maybe geared around a season, maybe geared around,
cosmetics. They said that the monetization was going to be limited to cosmetics.
So you need more people playing that to buy that. So why create a new system that might draw people away? When you can always say like, hey, no, we have Resurrected. It's over here. It's in this corner. It's what you've always known. We're not going to make it anything that's going to really compete with an end game that what we have right now.
Don't get me wrong though. There are people who are playing like playing D2 now that will just not play D3, and they will probably not play D4.
Right.
So.
Which is bonkers to me. Like, I mean, I love Diablo 2, but I also like other things. So
yeah. But it's also one of those other ones where you have to consider the people that are still maintaining D2R. Blizzard, Albany, Vicarious Visions. They've also been tapped. The majority of the staff is working on Diablo 4 at the moment.
Right.
So how much resource do you pull away to do any type of updates or changes to D2R as opposed to continuing to push that talent and those resources into D4.
Right. But I definitely still love it, and it is so fun. I have like at least 10 more characters that I want to play, and then Diablo 4 will be out. I think that's my goal. I'm just going to throw myself into that. But in tandem with D2R, we still have Diablo 3, which is season 26 is ending August 21st. You heard it here 4th. Maybe 5th. I'm not sure at this point. But it is ending, which means season number 27 will be coming. They haven't announced the date on that, but I would assume it will be it's normally like a week, 2 weeks.
It's generally been either a week or two, so it's either going to be on the 25th or the 1st.
So, would you do Labor Day? Maybe you'd want to do it before that weekend. Who knows? But we do have Diablo 3 still alive and kicking, even if Flux hasn't logged on in 6 years. Still going.
Trust me, he'd be playing D2R now anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Nineball, you had shared that you are still going at it strong, and I do intend to make season 27 a priority. So look out, because you're going to be getting a lot of requests. So tell me your season 26. How did it go, and what are you looking forward to in season 27?
Season 26 was fun. It didn't really have too memorable of a mechanic, and so it was kind of like just play the game, get Guardian, and you're done. That's some of the more memorable seasons, which is kind of what I'm really looking forward to coming up with season 27. Besides the fact that it might be launching like the day before my birthday, is that the sanctified items kind of like look very similar to last year. They brought the ethereals, that they brought a whole bunch of like Diablo 2 callbacks that had some really unique properties that created gameplay experiences that didn't exist in the game prior to that. And so that you playing, I believe that was season 24, season 25 that had the ethereals, that you could, there were certain builds that only worked in that season and they'll never work again unless they bring those items back. And the new sanctified items that they're bringing in is season 27 is very similar to that style, to where it's not necessarily a singular drop, but your items can you can get you can either get a sanctified item to drop or like the thing to modify them, that allows you to have a special property on it in addition to having like the maxed out stats. And some of those are very unique. And like one of my favorite builds is the Pestilence Necromancer. You use a whole bunch of the corpses to shoot the corpse lances at everything on the screen. It's great for like just like speed clearing, like Torment 16 bounties, or to farm rift keys. But when it comes to like the end game and pushing greater rifts, nah, it's terrible. It has its purpose and that's it, but you can't really push with it. But with the new sanctified item, one of them makes it so that way every time your golem walks by a corpse, it absorbs it into its body, and that one corpse becomes a max usage of any corpse skill. So when you hit devour, all of a sudden you're shooting out 20 corpse lances off of that one. You're getting a huge return on all of that, making it so that way going and using a pestilence build with a single sanctified item with that property and a golem, now all of a sudden the biggest detriment when you're going through and you're pushing, where you don't have access to a lot of corpses and your damage drops off, now all of a sudden I do. And that makes it so that way you can potentially push and have a lot of fun with these like corpse pestilence builds in the higher difficulties. Legacy of Nightmares will probably still be the better corpse build, but I just I like that particular play style, and so it's something that I'm going to mess around with. That has a lot of potential, and after the season is over and those items all disappear, you'll never be able to play again. And so I see myself playing a lot of this next season, just because it's going to buff something that I'm excited about or interested in. And that's very similar to, I guess not so much similar to like Path of Exile, because when those really popular things in Path of Exile will oftentimes get baked into the core game. And so they'll take it like the delve and stuff like that, harvest will get added in. It's like, well, this was such a popular feature, we're gonna make it permanent. With the current Diablo 3, we kind of like the Echoing Nightmares. Was just that. This is the seasonal theme, but it's now being added as a core component to the game to play around with. So that they've done that a couple of times. But most of the time, it's just like these one-off unique experiences. That's what keeps drawing me back every season.
Nice. Rush, Diablo 3?
No, I haven't touched it for about 5 years. I really enjoyed it when it came out for what it is. But for me, after D2, it just wasn't the same thing. I think a lot of people feel like that. I mean, it's good for what it is, but it's a different kind of game. And I just kind of never felt drawn back to it, actually, to be perfectly honest. It's probably something that I will play again before D4, just because, like I did with, before D2R came out, I played D2, and it's always good just to get back in that frame of mind to see the evolution of it. So that's probably going to be on the cards in the next couple of months or so when I get a minute away from screaming at servers and other things. But yeah, so I'm kind of looking forward to going back and playing it again because it has been so long.
It's a different game.
Yeah,
you won't even recognize it at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I was like on pure Diablo, we really focused on the stuff that was coming out now. So it was like D2R and obviously D4, and I just wasn't excited by Immortal. And like I said earlier in the show here, if we're not that excited by it, we just won't do it because I can't feel passionate or right about something that I'm just not that interested in, or I'm really not going to be playing. It just seemed mad. So D3 is kind of the same with us. Although we did like loads of stuff on D3, and we had a really good wiki on it and all that stuff. I mean, that was really Flux and Ellie that did that, but because I've kind of taken more of a sort of forward role, I'd say, on the new site now along with Ellie. Neither of us kind of felt that we really wanted to do it, and we just wanted to focus on the new stuff now and sort of think to the future instead of looking back at what D3 was going to do. Plus, there's so much stuff now. There's so much resource available for D3. It just seems mad. And half the excitement of doing stuff for the community is doing new stuff or stuff people haven't seen or haven't thought of before. And that's where you get the kick out of doing it. So, D3 is just not something that we decided to do. But I am going to go back to it before D4. I just think it kind of makes sense to do that, even if I get in tune with what's going on in the lore, because you kind of forget about it. Because I don't read. I mean, I'm not like a massive lore guy when it comes to games. I like to get in there and start hammering away at stuff, and then like maybe once I played through it and I'm playing it again, I'll pay more attention to it, the second time around. So I'll probably enjoy it more from that respect, playing it again after all this huge gap. But yeah, I mean, it's been quite a few years since I've played it. I'm looking forward to going back to it, certainly before D4 anyway.
Yeah, as I shared before, when I first started writing, my son was 3 months, and I would hold him at night, so my wife could sleep and play Diablo. Like that was just a great pairing. Like I could just hold him here and click and clear some greater rifts, and it was great. And now he's 11. He's playing Witch Doctor, so I was able to talk him out of a Demon Hunter because I don't like him making bad choices in life. It's my job as a parent to stop that. It's the only class, and I went through and I was looking through my account. It's the only class I never took to 70. I don't have a Paragon level on a Demon Hunter. Well, I do, but I've never hit that level. It's the only class I could do it. And Diablo 2 was this way too. I had like a sorceress. I could just never play that class. Demon Hunter was that one for Diablo 3. I'm sure it will be the same way in Diablo 4. I'm already thinking the sorcerer is not going to be him.
No, you always go for I always go for the caster first. Always go for the caster.
I'm definitely going. I know and we'll talk about it just a little bit in the D4 thing. But I know I'm Druid or Necro all the way. But
I approve of one of those decisions.
I feel the pull for the Druid.
Not that one.
Yeah, I know. But it has been so fun to go back and to see Diablo through the eyes of somebody who has never experienced it. He's 11. He has no idea like any of the stuff that I've done or like he doesn't know who David Brevik is. He's not impressed by the fact that I got to talk to him once. Like he doesn't think that's cool, but he's like, this is a fun game. I like playing this. I like making my Witch Doctor stronger. Can you explain why this item works? And I'm just like, son, you have no idea why. Like I will happily throw down and explain all this to you because that's what I've been doing. This is what I like. And it has kind of like rekindled a little bit for me, in these past few weeks. And, like I've already got my plan for season 27. Like I'm excited to jump into a Diablo season again, which it hadn't been like that. I did get burned out, much like I think anybody who plays the same game constantly. And I think that's a huge benefit right now of Diablo having multiple games is you can stay within your passion without maybe getting burned out. It was very easy to get burned out of Diablo 3 when that was all you had. But like I can be like, okay, I'm gonna shift. I'll play some Diablo 2 Resurrected, or maybe I'll go into Immortal, or eventually it'll be Diablo 4. But like I get to still stay within this universe I love without like feeling like it's a job anymore. Because like I hit that point with Diablo 3. I got burned out, and then I went to Path of Exile, which was like way worse for not like as a game. As a game, it's really solid, but like it is so much easier to get sucked into that and like just never leave.
What's the old joke? You have to play the game for 80 hours before that you begin to learn how to play.
I would say it's even more than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that like it is a phenomenal game, and Grinding Gear Games is doing great work over there. And I do not want to belittle them at all. But my first passion has always been Diablo. So it is kind of nice to kind of be back in that realm and to be excited about multiple Diablo games. And speaking of excitement, there's one last Diablo game that we have not talked about, and that is
Diablo 1.
Yeah, Diablo 1.
I've been waiting all
You've
show.
been waiting for an
I've been
hour.
waiting.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, I just have this one, and that is what I hate is how much I love it, because I'm just like, oh, why didn't I say that? And kudos to you, because that was good. That was so good.
It's almost like I have a little bit of experience doing a Diablo podcast.
It's true. Just a little bit, but I want to say that experience has killed a few shows. But okay, so Diablo 1, of course, I will say Rush did bring up Diablo 1 technically early on, but
fair.
We're not discussing it. It is a great game. I would love a remaster of that someday, but I feel like that'd be a fun mobile. Anyways, that's a tangent. Diablo 4. In 2019 when we last talked, it was in existence, but now it's very much a reality. We know we're going to see it, we're going to play it, and it's going to happen. That's exciting. So what are you looking forward to when it comes to Diablo 4? What is it that you want to see? Nineball?
I mean, geez, what I wanted was the Necromancer, and well, I got that. Though I've been saying since the game was released, it's like since they're opening up that whole, section of the world, the Eastern Kingdoms, it's like Halazar, that's kind of like where the Necromancers come from. So the Necromancer has to be one of the last two classes. Like, it just has to be. And then, of course, it's like, but the Necromancer is also like the most popular class from the entire franchise. So it's not really that a big of an ask. Like, any game that's had a Necromancer since Diablo 2 came out is like modeled the gameplay of the Necromancer off of Diablo 2. Like, it's like that was just an archetype defining game that everyone's just copied since then. And so it's like, it seems like with how much they're kind of like going back in, the Return to Darkness, bringing back the sorceress instead of the wizard, the druid, the barbarian, that it almost seemed like a no-brainer that it was going to be a Necromancer for that final class. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I've been really looking forward to. Especially, talking about Diablo Immortal before that. Diablo Immortal actually has like one of the best like gameplay loops for like a summoning Necromancer out of any of the games. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Diablo 4, because it's my favorite way to play, how Diablo 4 handles a summoning archetype for a Necro, and seeing like what those developers takes on it, as opposed to how Immortal did it, how Diablo 3 did it, how Diablo 2 did it, and so on and so forth. That's some of the stuff. And of course, story. That's an easy take for me, how they're going through and doing the story. Obviously they say it's going to be dark. Is it going to be dark, or is it going to be edgy? I think is like one of my concerns, when
no
anyone talks about that.
Yeah. Pentagrams.
Yeah, so that's what I look forward. I'm looking forward to in the game.
So if Lilith appears every 5 minutes in the act in a talking head, how are you going to feel about that?
Oh man, yeah.
Because in replaying the story for Diablo 3 for my son, the Asmodan, continual pop-ups, I was just like, no, we can just skip it. We can just skip it.
Yeah,
it's fine, Finn. Like, we'll just keep going. We'll just keep going. But what if it's important? It's not. He's going to insult us. We're going to move on. on. We'll fight him in a bit. And spoiler alert, I suppose, for anybody who's going to go back. Rush, Diablo 4 hopes.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, and I think probably the thing that's intriguing me most is how, because this is very different, and I think Immortal, like I'm looking at Immortal, there's going to be some stuff that is kind of going to be part of the way it works and the game mechanics and how the being able to move around the world and not have this. With the previous Diablo games, you pretty much had your acts. This you're free to go do your thing. And I think it's how that freedom is going to work in a Diablo game, how it's going to be. God, I'm trying to think of the word. How effective it's going to be, or is it just going to be so different that it's not going to feel like Diablo? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of weird.
Right. I think it's interesting you brought up, creating an Elden Ring site, not that long ago. I remember hearing about Elden Ring and thinking, an open world Souls game seems like, I don't know, because I've always had it paced out, where I had that. And I do get some of those kind of vibes of, like Elden Ring was amazing. And like, it felt right. I don't hate this concept of more of an open world for Diablo.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. It's not a criticism of it in any way. I'm just intrigued to see how it's going to work. Plus, we've only got part of the world. And what excites me is having that open up later on as well. And I guess that goes back to what you were saying about the lore and the story. Whereas I'm not like a lore and story guy. I'll get in there and I'll start hammering away and bashing away, whatever. But actually seeing the world now open up, that's really exciting. That's kind of, we've been very compartmentalized, but to have that open up, I think that's going to be really cool. And then obviously there's itemization as well. How that, we don't know. The thing that's really interesting about this is we could be like, I don't know, a year out, maybe just under a year out from release once they've done the beta and everything. And there's actually, think about it, we actually know very little in the big scheme of things. There's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we do know, but a lot of it's very basic, but we don't know a lot as well. And that seems kind of unusual, because usually when you're this far down the line in Blizzard game cycles, there's a lot of information out there, but these quarterly updates are kind of dripping the information to us slowly but surely. And you'll see things change, so there'll be small tweaks, whether it's like the skill tree or whatever it is. But there's actually a lot we don't know, and that excites me, not having all that information so early on. And I think that's the right way to go about doing it, to keep people like me excited by it.
Gives you something to figure out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you think about going back to D2, we used to sit in IRC chat, and like Max Schaefer would like drop in occasionally and drop some bombshell or give us a hint of something that was coming out. And of course that would send the channel going mad. Everyone would be discussing what's this, or what could this possibly be. So I guess the development updates are kind of a bit like that as well, where it engages the community again and people start talking about it. Today, for example, this stuff about the loot system. Whether what we will be able to trade and what we won't be able to trade, although we haven't had it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And of course, this can all change because the game's still in development. There's no doubt they're going to be taking feedback on this stuff. And if people say, "Oh, I don't want any restriction. I want it to be like D2. I just want it to be like that," then they probably will look at it again. Nothing's going to be set in stone at this stage, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to bring up, especially like we're starting to see like this weird pseudo trickle of information from a friends and family alpha. It's always like my friend told me they saw something.
Yeah,
it's always on Reddit. It's always on Reddit,
right?
So, someone sent me a screenshot,
but I don't have the screenshot.
Yeah,
actually, I did see real screenshots from the alpha.
Is that the character shots?
Yeah, it was like just brief character shots, and
that still looks really rough. There's no way.
Yeah, I imagine like there's still some stuff to kind of work in. But like, it's also a couple of quick screenshots, right? Of a quick, I think it was like a 30-second video. But outside of that, like anything else, I haven't been able to kind of trust. But we look at general itemization from Diablo 3, like that went through multiple iterations. The auction house too. I think like once it goes into beta, is when we will probably get a better sense of where it's going in. And my biggest hope is that the beta is better than what the Diablo 3 beta was.
I can't remember the Diablo 3.
Diablo 3
Level
beta,
12 Leoric. That
yeah.
was it.
Oh, right. Yeah. I
You didn't even finish
remember it now.
all of Act 1.
Yeah.
And you were so limited in what you were able to discover, where the itemization looked like it could be okay. And then, those glaring problems crept up when it came to difficulty and when it came to the auction house and stuff like that. But that was stuff that we probably could have saw if we would have had a better scope. And I'm hoping like maybe that open world feature that they're going to have, if we're seeing that in the beta, you can still like roadblock off the bosses that we would encounter that wouldn't spoil story, while allowing us to engage with itemization and maybe get like actual feedback that could skew it to the point, because like that's the make or break for me with a Diablo game is if the itemization works. And
if you look back to Reaper of Souls, they actually had the entirety of Act 5 except the Malthael fight available in the test. You got all the story and all that. Rifts weren't part of launch, so that wasn't included in the beta. But you could still play through, everything that it had available in the game up until that point.
Of course, even if you look back at WoW as well, which I know this isn't an MMO as such, but it is, there's going to be a lot of people on the servers doing their thing. I know there's a stat.
They've actually been very specific about it's not an MMO; it's an open world ARPG in order to differentiate itself.
So it's like, if you think about back to the WoW beta, that was 6 months, I think. So like that was going for a long time to make sure they got it right.
Well,
so
fair. The Diablo 3 beta was like 9 months.
Yeah.
Really? Oh my god, I can't even remember.
It was so long. And like it had almost the same amount of content as I remember playing the open beta of Diablo 2, where you were only a barbarian and you got one. And like even that I felt like was more robust at the time than the beta that we had for Diablo 3. So I'm hopeful, as I don't know if you guys know this. I'm already in the Diablo 4 beta. I don't want to brag. It only took several hours in line and a tattoo.
A sacrifice of flesh.
Small sacrifice of flesh. So I'm hoping when I'm eventually there, no big deal. Nightball, I'm sure you'll get in. I mean, they put you in Immortal and Diablo 3. They'll probably give you one. You don't have to pay that kind of sacrifice. But us schlubs who aren't in the game, well, we do have to go through extreme lengths. But I'm hoping that when I do get it, we have some good content there. That we get a full exploration, so we can hopefully find these things and then obviously be able to enjoy Diablo 4 to its fullest extent, and hopefully soon. Because speaking of which, this event, if you're not familiar, essentially, if you go to a tattoo parlor that is operating a Blizzard event, and there are only a few remaining. In fact, I think at this time, there is no more in the United States after tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow in Miami is the last one in the U.S., then it kicks over to Europe.
So those of you in Europe, looking at you, Rush, you might be able to squeeze out.
I'm ink free.
Oh, there's a first time for everything. But essentially, if you were to show up and get a tattoo, one, they do pay for the tattoo, by the way, so that's kind of a big deal. But you get a tattoo, and then in tandem with the tattoo, and this was not announced initially, but you do get access to the Diablo 4 beta and a free copy of Diablo 4 as well. But
I think I'll just send Ellie.
There you go. So it's coming your way. I recommend doing it. And honestly, I'm sad that this event only took place in a handful of cities, because it was legitimately fun. It was very fun, much like this conversation has been so far tonight, guys. It was very fun to find myself in a location surrounded by other people who feel the same way about Diablo, and just talk about it. We had nothing else to do during that time. We could just chat about Diablo, and everybody was game to do that. And then, you go into a tattoo parlor, is the first time in all my time of being tattooed that there wasn't just metal blaring from the speakers, as it is kind of a tattoo parlor staple, death metal of some sort. And then it was 6 televisions all playing the cinematics of every Diablo game in unison, as the room was filled with the soundtrack of Diablo as well. It was surreal, and it was a really cool event, and I would love if they did more stuff like this. If anything, like just that concept of community, right?
Mm-hmm.
After the past 3 years, where we've kind of been a little bit more sequestered, it was very cool to interact with people in person, right? That's not something that we get to do. One of the conversations we had in line is we were chatting about just like on, like the midnight openings for video games, right? Diablo 4 is going to come out, and it's going to come out digitally, and we're not going to go to a location. We're not going to interact with other people who are excited to play and get their copy. We're going to just be at our house. And I'm not saying that that's not the better system, because it absolutely is.
But it misses something.
Absolutely. I think there is such a cool thing about finding other people that you automatically have something in common with, especially when it's a big passion like a video game. So that's where I really thought that this whole thing was such a cool production. And if they do something again, I'm going to be there in line. I've got enough skin and enough time that I will happily do it. But if you are out there in Europe, go, or in Australia, when they come your way, go and do it, because you got a small amount of time on this earth and a lot of skin, so you can hide it. I didn't even put mine in a visible spot, and I have visible tattoos. So yeah, do it.
You're giving me flashbacks of all of my BlizzCon experiences.
Right, and I think that's the other thing too. I haven't made it to a BlizzCon. I wanted to, and when things were starting to fall into place, then a pandemic happened. So I could get a little bit of that, and we've chatted about BlizzCon before, and I had that feeling. Now, granted, it would have been nicer to maybe bump into some people that I've talked to for years, but this was still pretty great. Yeah.
Launch events and even BlizzCon. I remember going to the weird, like, this is the weirdest launch event ever, and it was for Diablo 2, and it wasn't even the official launch event. It was in London, and it was like, God, I still got the ticket for it somewhere. It was like it was at ECTS, which was the big trade show here at the time, and I think it was Havas, or who was it running at that? Who were publishing at that point? Anyway, it was so bizarre. It was like the weirdest thing I've ever been to. It was they called it a space opera, and it was like a combination of some weird alien stuff going on stage and like a Diablo-like creature like fighting. It was the most weird, strange thing like I'd ever been to, and that was their sort of big Diablo 2 sort of party thing that they had at this thing. It was so weird. But these events, like you go to, another one at Blizzard. I can't remember which one it was. Can't remember what it was. It was in some shopping mall place, and those events are great. They're like you say, it's like bringing people together and meeting people. And BlizzCon was always great for that as well. It was always a lot of fun. Even if like people come up to you, go, I love your site, or I like what you've done, and other stuff, and it's kind of like. You don't hear that when you see it every day, and you're dealing with people every day on the site or the forums or whatever. Let's put names to faces. And I think at one of the BlizzCons, we took everyone out to dinner, like who turned up. We said, look, everyone who comes to the site, we'll pay for your dinner. You just turn out here. And we took everyone out for dinner because it was so nice just to sit down, a dinner table with people like we've never met before, but we knew all their handles on the forums and actually just talk to them like face to face. And those moments are like so important. You never forget them. And that's why, like exactly like you're saying, when you go to a queue at the tattoo parlor, suddenly everyone's together, everyone's talking about the same thing. They've all got the same interests. And you don't get that. I mean, we're talking about it here on the screen, which is great, but we organize this. When it's spontaneous and we bump into people, that's when it becomes exciting.
Right.
That was actually the first time I had met Flux in person was the Reaper of Souls launch event, which also one of the the old contributors, Waterfiend, met him there, Leviathan, at the same place. The first time physically meeting all of those people that at that point I had been talking to on this podcast for years.
So
it is weird, but it's nice.
Our own event. It'll be in my backyard, and you all are invited.
I'll put the plane ticket now.
Come to gorgeous Milwaukee. We do have one person who has done the podcast and only lives about half an hour from me. So maybe there'll be 2 people on the screen. We'll bring him in. That'd be weird, but hey, why not? All right, so we have gone like way over time because this is so nice, and I've enjoyed it. But we should wrap it up for the sake of editing and the 5 people who are left.
It's only 3 a.m. It's only 3 a.m.
Right, and poor Rush is sitting there, and the sun is just creeping up behind him. So any last thoughts before we close this one out? Hopefully not for another 3 years. Dimeball?
I like you were saying, like throughout the entire show, it's such a great time to be a Diablo fan because you literally do have your choice. Whether you've been playing Diablo 2 for 22 years, whether Diablo 3 was your first and favorite Diablo experience, that your introduction to the franchise was a little mobile game called Diablo Immortal, or you're sitting there waiting, jonesing for the chance to go and play Diablo 4, that we've got so many options to go through and play, and all of them are, we expect, of course, Diablo 4, but all of them are going to offer their own unique experience, play style or something, and we can all at least enjoy this, like wonderful little world that we have going on here in this little community.
Yeah, what he said, but also just because I haven't actually been on the podcast before, believe it or not. It's always been somebody else, but especially people on the PureDiablo.com site and are members of the community, do talk to us, use the forums, chip in if you want to contribute. I mean, like people like Vang, exactly, he's putting out an article every Thursday. By all means, get in touch. We always need more help, and we're doing it because we love the game, and hopefully you can come along and help us, create a great resource for people as we head towards the release next year. I'm like super excited for it. I'm also going to do another quick plug for a game that I'm working on. And I work for a company called Free Sphere Entertainment, and we're working on a game called Revenant right now, which is a horror title. And check it out at freesphere.uk. And we got another title as well, which we're working on as well in the background. So yeah, it's all young developers that are coming out of college and stuff that are learning. So we have experienced guys that are working at game studios helping new developers get into creating games. So it's quite exciting doing that. So that's also what I'm doing at the moment. But if you're wanting to get your Diablo stuff, please do come to the site, say hello, and get involved in the community. Hopefully see you there.
I will definitely hark to something cool that happened to me and that we've seen happen to a lot of people in our community. Is you get involved, you do some things, and then sometimes it's a stepping stone. I got a job offer from Blizzard almost a decade ago. Unfortunately, I had to turn it down. But we've seen a lot of people who've been doing this turn it into something, and it makes sense. You work in your passion, and those opportunities open themselves up.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We know that at least 3 or 4 people that have worked on the site over the years are all working at game studios now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, one of your former podcast guests, Leviathan, is working on a Diablo game right now.
I did talk to him today, and I am happy to report that he will join us if he can get clearance at some point.
Yeah.
You'll never get clearance.
I don't know. Like,
I have to say I do have a little bit of experience with this one because I was good friends with Brandy Nevelistis, one of the community managers, built a really good relationship with her over the years, but I was never able to get her on a podcast until she left the company, and she was the public face of Diablo, so there were no issues with PR clearance or anything like that, but they are very particular about when they let people go on to shows and stuff.
Yeah, we tried for years. Honestly, we tried for years. And what was so actually strange, actually for us, was that obviously when D2 was being developed, it was very open. Like they were interacting with us all the time because they were using us to give them feedback to develop the game and using the community to get feedback. But like when everything changed and Blizzard North was no more and everything moved to Earth, things kind of changed. That we saw that everything was kind of, I don't know, maybe more professionalized would be the correct word. And obviously the gaming market is becoming more competitive at that point. Think back then, you may get, I don't know, 70 titles released a year. Like now there's like 70 a day, coming up on Steam. So the market's so much more competitive, so they got to be more careful about what they're saying. That's just the reality of it.
I mean, and they're not as small as they used to be. And they're part of something.
Certainly not.
And they're part of something even bigger. I look at something, and we brought them up before, but Grinding Gear Games with Path of Exile developers are out there a little bit more. They've been on this podcast before, but like they have more control, and they're still a little bit smaller. But I think if there's one person who can do it, I believe in Leviathan. So I have faith, and he's going to be listening. Because why wouldn't he? What else is he going to do? So that's your shout out, man. Make it happen so we can get you on here. All right, we should close this out. And I know it's been a while, but it's a cascading moo, guys. It's a cascading moo. So moo, 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 moo.
Moo, 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 moo.
Moo, 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 moo.
See? Beautiful. Nailed it.